Welcome to Sevier Heights. If it's your first time with us online, we're so glad that you dropped by. And if you're here to watch a past message, you're in the right place. If you have questions about giving, next steps, or you just want to learn more about who we are, click the link in the description or just visit us at sevierheights.org. Thanks so much for being here. Let's jump into Sunday's message.
Well, good morning. As Kari said, my name is Heath, and I'm one of the pastors on staff here, and honored to be here today. Our pastor, Tim, is on vacation this week. Glad he has an opportunity to get away with his family. And if it is your first time, know that Tim will be back next week, so at least give us another try. There you go. But honored to be here today, and as Kari said, it is summertime. Many of you might have been on vacation this last week, and you're back in, you're rolling back. Our students are at camp, some of the middle schoolers are heading there this coming week. And it takes me back, when I think about summer, when I think about everything that's happening now, especially with our students and our kids, it takes me back to my summers growing up when I was in middle school and high school and even as a kid, back in the 80s. And so back when we didn't have cell phones to distract us all the time, right? But I remember that I would go over to a friend's house and spend the night. We'd just show up. We'd just ride our bike over and be like, hey, what's up? Knock on the door. Hey, man, you want to come spend the night? Sure. Parents, no? Nah, we're good. And that's just how we lived. It's what we did. And I'll never forget, I went over to a friend of mine's house named Kevin. And Kevin was a great friend. We both were 13. And, before I kind of get in this, there's a question I want you to think about because maybe you can relate with this story even more, and it's this. Have you ever had a moment where a choice to do something fun turned risky, dangerous, or maybe even destructive? Men, anyone? Yeah? I think many of us in the room have thought that or done that. So I show up at my friend Kevin's house, and when I show up, we're going to do the typical 13-year-old guy thing, right? We've got video games, got our Atari, we're playing our video games, we're hanging out, we're doing those things, we're prank calling people, all the things we did, the fun stuff. But I decided that I was going to bring some bottle rockets over to his house. And not a great smart move to give a 13-year-old bottle rockets, but my dad was like, here, have some fun. And so bottle rockets, if you don't know what they are, they're on a stick. It's a little small rocket that shoots up in the air and it blows up, and it's just poof, and that's it. It's nothing major. So we go outside at Kevin's house, and we're like, hey, it's getting dark. Let's go outside. We're going to start shooting some bottle rockets off. So we go outside, and we shoot the bottle rockets up into the air, and we're thinking, that's fun. But we needed to up the game, right? We are 13-year-old boys looking for a thrill, and we decided we're going to shoot those bottle rockets at things and not people. We didn't shoot them at people. That's really dangerous, and so we just decided to shoot them at like buildings and stuff. They had a building behind their house. So we just pull out the bottle rockets, and we're aiming them at the building, and they're taking off for the building, right? But that still wasn't risky enough. That still wasn't fun enough for us. And so we decided we're going to up the ante a little bit more. And so we decided to go for something that's moving. Still not people, not even him or his sister. We started to shoot him at cars. Now, there's something called a prefrontal cortex. Anybody heard of that? It's the part of your brain that helps you make wise decisions, good decisions. And that fully forms at like 25. So at 13, I'm like, a few years away from that. So we can give us a pass on our decision making on that. But we decided to shoot at cars, and they're going everywhere, right? They're just springing. We don't know what we're doing. Those things never go the way you direct them, and we weren't good aims anyway, until one time we finally were. And a car went by, and we aimed it, and we lit it, and it took off, and it went right under the car, and boom! Oh, I heard that. I thought we've just blown up a car. But it happened. The car, fortunately, it did not blow up. The car came to a screeching halt just past it. It screeched, and we do what any normal 13-year-old kid would do in that moment. We ran up to the car, and we said, I am so sorry. We were not very... No, we ran. We took off and ran and hid under his bed and for hours. And his mom's like, what are you doing? Nothing, Mom. We're just hiding under the... And we were thinking that maybe the cops were coming. We didn't know. Nobody showed up, fortunately. Nobody came. But for a couple of hours, we were so scared. And I think about that moment, and I know for sure that living through that and experiencing that, I'll never shoot a bottle rocket at a car again. That's one thing I learned. But I also learned that all of us, we do something that we we think might be just a little bit risky. It might be pushing the envelope just a little bit. It might just be a little bit something that's enjoyable, that if I do this, then I might live life a little bit better. Like here's an example. Maybe buying a boat for you is a thrill that you're thinking, we live in East Tennessee. Have you seen all the water around? We need to have a boat. And, but it doesn't work in the budget necessarily unless you realize that eating is overrated and you can pull out of the food budget. And you decide to make that happen and you pull it over and you're going, we got a boat, it's a beautiful boat, but we're eating peanut butter and jelly. And that's probably not the wisest move, but you got one. It's a little bit risky. You went for it anyway. Maybe you binge watch a show all night. It's that new crime documentary, all 8 episodes. You watch it all night long. You wake up the next morning, you have not slept. You're a complete waste of space at work. But your boss, he's got to know. They have to understand that it's your show. You get it. This was the one I've been waiting for. But you pay for it a little bit later, right? Or maybe you start and finish the whole ice cream tub. If anyone can relate with that, especially if it's Jenny's Brambleberry Crisp. If you've never tried it, it will change your life. But why do you do it? Why do you eat it? What's happening in that moment that makes you go, I just need to finish this thing off. It's been a long, hard day, and you think, I deserve it. See, those are just things that we can kind of step into that maybe, shooting bottle rockets at cars, a little bit risky, might be illegal, I don't know. Or buying a boat, doing something like that. But we pay for it a little bit later. It's just one of those kind of after effect things that happen. But then there are times where we know what the rules are, and we break the rules. We know what the rules are and we intentionally break them, maybe for a little bit of a thrill, maybe it's because it will benefit from it, maybe it's because something that we just feel like that I'm just going to break it because I just want to have a little bit more fun in life, and maybe something like speeding. Give that an example of that. Maybe you just love the thrill of the speed that you're running, or maybe you just try to get there a little bit quicker, but they have these pesky signs with numbers on them that just ignore them. They're actually just more of a suggestion. But you speed and you kind of roll with it, but maybe there's something could happen, but it is what it is. Or maybe you skip school along the way. Maybe you're growing up, you're in high school, you go through college and you've done this and you skip school. You thought they have way too many days that are not necessary. And I should be able to take the day that I want to take and when I want to take it, and you skip school and you think, surely they'll forgive me, they too many anyway. Or maybe you show up late for work consistently, day in, day out. You show up, meeting starts at 9 o'clock, you're showing up at 9:15 because you love your sleep. And your boss has got to understand. They got to understand, I watched the show the night before and I'm going to show up late. It's just what I do. I'm just going to break the rules. But then we experience a consequence of those rules. There's something that happens after we do it, we know what the rule is, we break it, and then something happens. Like speeding, you get a ticket or maybe jail or a fine. Or maybe you're skipping school and you get suspended or expelled. Or maybe you show up late for work and you get probation or fired. You see, oftentimes when there is a rule that's there, when we break it, we decide to kind of do what we want to do, and maybe it seems fun, maybe it seems enjoyable, maybe it seems a thrill of life, maybe it's just something we just want to do it because it's a rule and we just want to break it. But when we break those rules, there's typically something that happens after. There's a consequence. Sometimes we can even feel like there's a punishment. Well, today we're going to take a look at a person who knew the rules. They knew what the rules were. They broke the rules. Not only did they break the rules, they were caught breaking the rules. And not only were they caught breaking the rules, they were brought into public after being caught breaking the rules. And not only were they brought into public, they were brought into a public setting where Jesus was. Okay, so during this time, Jesus is teaching. Jesus is doing his thing. Jesus is out and about, and people are beginning to follow him, and they're beginning to hear things that they've never heard before. Things about God they've never heard before, experience things in love and grace and mercy from him that they've never experienced before. And people are experiencing this. In fact, many people would bring someone to Jesus, maybe to have them healed. Hey, I know this Jesus guy. I'm going to bring you to him, and he can heal you. Hey, I know there's this Jesus guy. He's the one we've been looking for. Just come and see. And so people would come to him, or he would look to them and say, hey, I want you to come follow me. And they would. So when they're face to face with him, when they see him eye to eye, it's something that says, you meet this guy, he will radically change you. But this isn't about to happen like that. what she thinks she's going to experience because she's being brought before Jesus after being caught in a heinous and a horrible situation. So let's pick up on the story. Early in the morning, he, Jesus, returned to the temple. All the people gathered around him, and he sat down and taught them. The legal experts and Pharisees brought a woman caught in adultery. Placing her in the center of the group, they said to Jesus, "Teacher." It's interesting, they acknowledged him as teacher. "This woman was caught in the act of committing adultery. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone women like this, and so what do you say?" This they said to test him, that they might have some charge to bring against him. Now, we're going to pause here just a moment as we start this story. These are Pharisees that had no desire, like I mentioned. Interesting they called him teacher because they have no desire to follow him. They have no desire, recognition of who he says that he is. In fact, they are at odds with him in what he has been teaching. In fact, he's teaching in the temple. He should not be there because he is not one of the religious educated that they recognize. They're going, why is this man teaching? So he's teaching. People are gathering around him. He's saying, you have heard this, but I say this. And as they're hearing this, they're going, he is completely upsetting everything that we have built our religious traditions, our belief, our structure on. So we got to trick him. We need to catch him. And so they bring this woman. And when they look at him, they don't ask him, what do you want us to do? Like in a way, like you would go to a friend and say, hey, can you help me out understand this? Give me some wisdom here. They're not asking, hey, can you help us to understand what to do? No, they're actually trying to trap him. They're trying to catch him. In fact, their motivation was not to make a difference. It was to make a point. You see, their motivation was not to come and say, we want to make a difference in this lady's life. In fact, those who brought people to Jesus prior to this and outside, I mean, when we read about people that came and they were healed and people that came and they discovered and people that came and they heard and he said, choose to, hey, come follow me. And they did. And disciples from all around were beginning to hear his teaching and they were going, oh, this, who is this? But they were bringing to make a point. They wanted to be right. They didn't want to see her change. They didn't want to impact her life. They just wanted to be right. In that moment, when she's standing there in shame, with her eyes to the ground, and they're standing there with their arms folded, it's easy for them to feel righteous. Jesus, what do we do here? Because the question was really challenging for Jesus. Because if he let her go, he would neglect the Mosaic law. That's the religious law. If he commanded them to stone her, which is what they said should happen, to pick up a stone, continually pelt her with it, he would be breaking the Roman law, the civil law. See, the Mosaic law, many of us know as the Ten Commandments. Many of us know, we've heard the 10, we've heard the 10 growing up. We kind of many of us could even quote them. We know what they are. Maybe you've got a poster at home with it. Maybe at work you have it. It's the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not commit murder. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not have other gods before me. But there are actually over 600 laws that they knew inside and out. And 600 of these laws said exactly what should happen, when it happened. If someone committed, then this is the punishment, and this was what exactly should happen in that moment. And so if Jesus let her go, he would be neglecting that. In fact, Jesus tells us that he said, I didn't come to abolish that. I actually came to fulfill it. So he actually is looking to that, and he feels like if they're thinking, if you don't do anything with this, if you say don't do that, then you're kind of neglecting that, and we're going to take away some credibility for you. But if he commanded them to stone her, he would be breaking the Roman law. You see, Rome were the ones that were over the Jewish people at this time, right? Israel, they were being occupied by Rome. And so the Roman law was one who superseded all of the Jewish laws. So whatever they said could happen in their Jewish laws, They had to actually check and make sure that this was okay in the Roman law. And the Roman law would not allow them to walk out and put someone in the street, stone them. So, Jesus, a little bit of a pickle here. So what did he do? Jesus bent down and wrote on the ground with his finger. Think about that for a minute. You ask someone a question. You're waiting for a response. Even the type of question that they're asking him, very snarky. They're waiting to hear what his response is going to be. In fact, they got their hands going like this, and they're thinking to themselves, something's about to happen. He's going to answer one way or the other. He's going to say stone her. He's going to say let her go, and we got him. And Jesus bends down, starts writing on the ground. Seems so odd. Seems like just odd. He doesn't just respond. I mean, oftentimes we see Jesus, when a question is asked of him, he returns a question back. But in this moment, he bends down and writes on the ground. Why? What does he write? We don't know. We truly don't know. We don't know what actually he wrote. I mean, it could have been maybe the sins of the accusers. Maybe it was the wrongs of the accusers that he's writing them down going, okay, I just want you guys to know maybe their names, what they actually did next to it. And maybe he's letting them know that, okay, if you're bringing her out here, I want you to remind you of what all the things that you've done. Maybe, we don't know. Maybe it was the man's name, because as they brought her out, there was obviously a man. She was with another man that was not her husband, so therefore they did not bring them. And actually the law says that both of them should be brought, but they weren't. So maybe he's going, hey, what about this guy? Maybe he was just representing the finger of God that wrote the Ten Commandments on the tablets, Mount Sinai, with Moses. It's in the law that you were referencing here. I, God in the flesh, you don't think I know them? Wrote them. Or maybe it's just to distract them. Maybe it's just, he just says, hey, I just want you guys to get your eyes off of her because she's enough shame, everything she's experiencing. Maybe it's just to pause and reflect for just a moment. Maybe he's just saying, there's a question coming. I don't know if you're ready for it. But here we go. Because Jesus masterfully responds. They continue to question him. So he stood up and replied, whoever hasn't sinned should throw the first stone. Bending down again, he wrote on the ground. Think about that for just a minute. Think about you're in that group of people. You are the crowd. You are the accusers. The woman is there. Everyone is present. And after he bends down and writes on the ground, he turns to them and he says, whoever hasn't sinned, any of you that hasn't sinned, any of you that has not sinned at all, any of you that hasn't done a wrong, any of you that hasn't thought something bad, any of you that, you know what God has said, how he said to live and the way he said to behave and the way he said to treat people, and you know all these things, but there's been somewhere along the way that you just fell, right? It may not be as bad as what she's done, what she's been accused of, but you got something in your life. And if you don't have any of that, if you are completely without any of that, completely pure of it all, never made a bad decision, never said a bad thought, never had a bad action or a reaction to someone, you've never had any of that, you know what? You go first. And this is really important. He doesn't brush over her offense. He doesn't look and say, hey, it's okay. She hasn't done anything, because he knows. I mean, he's the one who actually has this and has written this. He understands it. And he fully is saying, hey, what she has done, I'm not saying that's not wrong. I'm not saying that what she has done, like any of us in this room, what we have done, it's not that it's not wrong. It's what he's saying is that, okay, for as far as this, throwing this rock at her, let's go this way. If you haven't done anything wrong, throw it first. Don't miss this. I think the point he is making here is this. I think for the crowd that is there, the point that they walked away with, huge point right here was this. We can't be good enough. I mean, if we feel like, and like myself, who can oftentimes find myself with this kind of this welling up of this self-righteousness that, if everyone else could just be as good as me, if everyone else can be as righteous as me, as everyone else can be as holy as I am, if everyone else can be just good overall, I mean, if they were like me, if I wasn't like them, then everything would be okay. So easy for me to cast the judgment, so easy for me to condemn, so easy for me to throw out the stone or throw out my words or cast something or talk about whatever might be happening in my life, maybe even in your life. But he reminds me that you can't be good enough, that we want to be right. But then there's what's righteous, and only his righteousness as they come together can really happen. Because you and I, we can't be righteous without him. We're not good enough. We can't be good enough. None of us can be good enough. And when we recognize that, it changes us. Our heart changes. Our posture changes. Our approach changes with others. I don't know of all the people that were there listening, but can you imagine experiencing this and witnessing this and seeing this happen? Witnessing Jesus in that moment who says, hey, okay, if you can throw it, but you got to be without any of the sin, any of the wrongs that we've been talking about. You pure? You completely blameless? Well, the story continues. How did they react to his question? What did they do? Those who heard him went away one by one, beginning with the elders. Finally, only Jesus and the woman were left in the middle of the crowd. Jesus stood up and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Is there no one to condemn you?" She said, "No one, sir." Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go, and from now on, don't sin anymore." Put yourself in her shoes for just a minute. You've been brought in front of everyone in shame. You've been brought in front of everyone in complete embarrassment. You've been brought in front of all these people, right? You've got all the people that have been listening to Jesus. You've got the accusers. You got Jesus himself. And I don't know, maybe the whole town, the whole village is there. And you're the one who's brought in front of everyone, shame, eyes to the ground, and the one who actually bends over, who could pick up the rock and actually throw it because he is completely without any wrong, without any sin. He is the perfect one. He actually is the only one who could have, based on what he said, anyone who doesn't have sin, throw the first stone. He could have, and he chose not to. Whoa. Think about that. He told her to go. He said, I don't condemn you either, go. But don't go to that way of living anymore. Don't go back to that. All that you've been looking for, that you thought would bring life, hope, something that would bring you fulfillment, something that would bring you satisfaction, something in your life that you feel, maybe it's that relationship for any of us, whatever that might be, that he says, go, but I don't want you to go back to that way of living. See, he granted her mercy. And we experience mercy when there's something at stake. See, we can't experience mercy until there's something at stake. We can't experience mercy unless we realize that there's something that can be done, maybe an outcome or a judgment or a consequence that can happen. That when we have done this, that we have experienced it. You know, back to the things that we said earlier. Speeding, judge overturns it. You walk in and you're sitting there and he says, okay, I know that you went 30 miles an hour over. I get that. Technically, I could put you under the jail right now, but we're not going to do that. In fact, I'm going to let you go. Just don't do that anymore. All right, let's just not do that. Oh, I realize what should happen to me, and I walk away. There's a degree of mercy with that. Skipping school, principal, you walk in, skip school. I mean, this is your 14th time doing it. The principal technically could expel you, but you say, "Oh, I don't know what to do," and your head's bowed. And he said, "Just one more. Don't do it anymore." And he sends you on. He says, "Go." And show up late for work consistently every day, and your boss says, how about this? How about I just buy you an alarm clock? Maybe that'll help you. But let's not make that happen anymore, okay? I think there's a degree of mercy we feel with that, right? How much greater do we experience that with Jesus? Because her wrong choice is what she decided to pursue. What you and I have decided to pursue in our own lives. It has separated us from our relationship with God, and only through his righteousness can we have that and experience that life that he promised. What is our consequence? What she deserved is death, right? She realized that in that moment, that she's like, I know what I deserve. I know what the law says. I know this is what I've deserved. This is what's going to happen. But when he looked to her and said, go, but don't pursue that way of life. Do you think when she left that she pursued that way of life? She just went right? I don't think so. We don't know. We can't read. We have no. But I have this feeling that she's has experienced mercy like never before of what she's deserved and what she felt like that was about to happen. And you think she walked away and she actually pursued a different way of living because of fear? No. I believe it's because she experienced the grace and mercy of Jesus. You see, they wanted to publicly shame her because of her sin. Jesus wanted to publicly free her in spite of her sin. You know, something she didn't know at the time. But Jesus, soon after, would actually he would give his life for her. What was owed, what she owed for that, he was going to give it. What we owe because of our wrong, our sin, our judgment, lack of judgment, our pursuit of our own way, it's the same as death. And he's given his life. He has said, the law that they're talking about, you can't live by it. So I'm going to pay for that. And I'm going to be the one who actually gives my life freely. Not taken, freely given. Because that law, all those rules, you can't live by them and be perfect. As my Father is perfect. You see, there's also a man that we read about in the Bible, and his name was Saul. And Saul was was one of the Pharisees. We talked about the religious leaders who came, the Pharisees and the religious leaders. And Saul was one of those guys. And Saul knew the ins and outs of it. And Saul was the guy, like, for instance, if you needed to know about the law in general and you didn't know, am I breaking the law? He knew exactly. He could tell you, yes, you are, and here's what you need to do about it. I mean, it's like you're the guy you go to that knows everything about taxes. Hey, what are my tax laws? And he could tell you all the nuances. I didn't know I could do that. Well, he knew everything about it. In fact, as people became Christians and were following Jesus, Paul very well could have been one of the ones that's here holding a rock. He might have been there, but he ends up condemning all the Christians that are choosing to follow Jesus even after Jesus comes back from the dead, and they begin to follow him. And he's wondering why these people follow him. So he realized what he has to do is we have to eliminate the people. We've eliminated Jesus. He's no longer here, so we got to start taking care of the people. And he comes face to face with Jesus, and it changes him. And Saul becomes Paul, and he writes all these books in the New Testament. And one thing he realized was this: all that I was living by, I couldn't make it. I couldn't live it. In fact, Jesus came so that I would realize that all of that pointed to him. In fact, he tells us this in Colossians. These are a shadow of the things that were to come. These being all the rules, regulations, all the different laws, all the different rituals that they would follow, all the things, they were just a shadow. Were they insignificant? They were pointing to him. They were a shadow of the things that were to come, but the reality, however, is found in Christ. You see, her accusers focused on the law and not the one who would fulfill the law. They missed it. They focused on the shadow and missed the shadow caster. You see, the shadow cannot equal the shadow caster. The shadow is not as equal to the shadow caster. In fact, when we see it, it's a recognition of going, there is something that we are seeing, there is something that we're witnessing, there is something that actually is this has been a reflection of, but when we see the shadow caster, we see it in its fullness. And what she experienced in that moment was hopefully something we've experienced and can experience is this. It's the shadow caster is the one who reveals the shadow. See, some of us, maybe we walked in today, and some of us, maybe we can easily pick up a rock. Some of us, we can pick up a rock and we can throw it really easy. It's easy for us to make condemnation. It's easy for us. In fact, when we heard the story and the first thing that maybe popped in our head was, yeah, well, she deserved that because she did that. That's the crime that she committed, and that's what we say. But Jesus sets this example of mercy, and yet for some reason we feel like we deserve and we have the right to pick up the rock. And I say us because I've been so guilty of this in my life. There have been times all throughout my life where, man, I could pick up a rock and I could sling it with the best of them. I would have a pocket full of them. And I could easily just sling this at other people. I could easily just be like judging other people. I could easily ridicule and condemn others. And in this day and age, it's so easy. I mean, I just one little post about somebody or something I disagree with, or something that happens in a quick text that I can fire off, or an email that I can send out, and whatever might be taking place in our lives, that there's some way that we can begin to look and say, I just want to be right. Well, here's a question I want us to ask ourselves today. I'd love for you to ask yourself is this: do we want to make a point, or do we want to make a difference? In our faith, as we live out our faith every day, do we want to just make a point? Do we just want to be right? Is that our goal? Or do we really want to make a difference in the lives of others? Do we want to make a difference in their lives so that when we actually bring them to Jesus, we're not bringing them and standing back and being like, do you see what he did? See what she did? But we're bringing them saying, I promise when you meet him, you will never be the same. This life that you're looking to live, this life that you're looking to lead, this way that you're trying to live out your life and trying to find fulfillment, trying to find hope, trying to find a life, I promise when you meet him, you will be different. See, that makes a difference, not just a point. Or maybe you came today and you're not ready to throw a rock, but you're ready to hand it off to someone to throw at you. Because you know that there's been some things in your past, some things that you've done that just hurt, some things that maybe have been done to you that just hurt, some things that have been done that you're like going, if they only knew, they probably wouldn't let me in these doors. I think we've all been there. I mean, as I was preparing for this, there are times I'm like, I don't even deserve to stand up there and talk about this because I've been so guilty of so much of this. But maybe you felt like that there's no way. God can't do anything with this mess. God can't do anything with this. I don't even know where to begin. If they find out, they're probably going to kick me out. I mean, it could have been 2 years ago. It could have been last year. It could have been 20 years ago. It could have been last night. But there's something, a decision, a choice, the way you treated somebody, the way you talked to someone, maybe to your spouse or to your friend, whatever that might be. We need to know this. Jesus wants to extend you mercy too. And can I remind you of his words? God so loved the world that he gave his only son so that everyone who believes in him won't perish, but will have eternal life. You heard that from most of us in this room. If you haven't, and it's the first time I've never heard that before, I know it's kind of enlightening. For many of us, we've heard it. It feels like redundant. It's a verse we learned as a kid. We just kind of like get caught up in it. We can probably say it. We can say it with our eyes closed. We can say it, probably different languages. I mean, we just know that. Heard it 1,000 times. But when you stop and realize the significance of it, that he loved the world, everyone, every person, her, you, all of us, in such a way that he gave his life that everyone who believes in him won't perish, but have eternal life forever. But oftentimes we miss the verse next. We don't continue. We stop there. And it says this: for God did not send his son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. So he didn't come to condemn the world. He didn't come to condemn you. You might feel condemned, but it's not from him. Maybe it's from others. Maybe it's from yourself. That condemnation doesn't come from him. That judgment doesn't come from him. He actually came to save, to give us hope, to give us life. See, he wants you to see you for who he really is. Full of grace, full of truth, full of hope. And when she was face to face with Jesus, she experienced something she didn't expect. Life. And today, we can experience that. You can experience that. Maybe you walked in and this is just, you need to talk to someone. Carly said it earlier. We have a next steps area. We'd love somebody to talk with you. Lunch place will wait. It's okay. We'd love to have someone chat with you about it. But no matter where we stand on this, no matter where we are on this, we have the opportunity to pick up a rock. Maybe it's to sling it. Maybe it's to give it to someone else. But today, maybe there's something that you need to do. Maybe it's time to put down the rock. Let's pray together. God, we love you. Thank you so much for your love for us. You're so good. We hear stories like this, and I just realize how I fall so short. Oh, I've been on that side of just wanting to pick up and sling the rock. I've been the one who's wanted to be right. I've been the one who has wanted to prove a point. I've been the one who has stood before others and said, if you don't see things like I see them, or if you don't experience it like I experience it, then you are missing out. And Jesus, did you see them? Did you see her? Did you see him? Where I need to bring them to you freely and say, just come and see. He'll change you. And for many of us that are looking for that hope, that are looking for that opportunity, just to say, is there mercy that's available to me? It is. Grace and mercy, they can only come from Jesus, and we're so grateful for that. We love you. Thank you for your love for us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Let's stand and sing together. My soul thirsts for things I can't explain. In my bones a beckoning to pray. If my heart is a battleground, my defenses run both ways. The flesh is a beggar and thief, but there is a spirit man awakening me. When real life and peace won't make amends, when all these start feeling like these ends, like the world is unraveling and I'm bound to come undone, there is a shepherd, a priest. There is a comforter who comforts me. And my soul finds rest where it makes no sense. There the blood sets me free. All my old regrets, all my brokenness, all of my failures redeemed. And it feels like grace, where I stacked my shame, there the cross stands for me. All the things I've done, all the times I've run, all my dead ends redeemed. And it looks like hope when my heart was broke and his heart broke for me.
afraid.